A sleeper car is a favorite among all passionate gearheads. While aggressive design and a roaring engine are great, so is a calmer model that's even faster than a loud and flashy vehicle. During the 1980s, sleepers frequently appeared in unexpected places as the American market adapted to new rules, shifting consumer demands, and an influx of foreign models. All the cars on this list were manufactured in quantities of 1,000 or less, and manufacturers provided the specifications directly. Each car's original and average used prices were obtained from reputable auction websites like Classic.com, Haggerty, and Hemmings. Hi guys, welcome to Finest Vehicles. Today, we will look at the rarest sleeper cars of the 1980s. An unbiased observer might anticipate that the TVR Tasmin 280i would perform reasonably well, comparable to a 1985 VW Golf GTI or a first-generation Mazda MX-5, thanks to styling cues borrowed from low-profile sports cars and hot hatches. Actually, the V6-powered 280i produced 40 horsepower and 50 pound-feet of torque more than either of those classics. With 160 horsepower and 150 pound-feet of torque, the 280i was comparable to a 1989 Lotus Elan, but it cost $8,000 less. Unfortunately, oddballs like the TVR were pushed out of the market by the Golfs and Miatas of the 1980s. During the 280i's 1983 to 1987 production run, only 1,167 were produced. This car originally hit the market at $25,000, but now you can find them on the used market for around $8,500. No one slept on the original Oldsmobile Cutless. The 442's 400 cubic inch rocket V8 engine produced 345 horsepower and an intimidating 440 pound-feet of torque at its peak in 1965. However, the mark had become obsolete by 1980. To be honest, the Cutlass's third and fourth generations were nothing more than slabs of steel with weak V6 engines up front. With a 350 cubic inch V8 reminiscent of the Cutlasses of the past, Oldsmobile made a 180-degree turn in 1980 and established the Cutlass Calais trim line as the brand's performance platform. With fiberglass components and other enhancements from the W30 performance package, the 1980 Calais 442 produced a respectable 170 horsepower and an impressive 245 pound-feet of torque. This car originally hit the market at $6,919, but now you can find them on the used market for around $18,225. In total, they made 886 units. The mighty Mustang did not have its best years in the 1980s. The original pony car was reduced to a sloth in a pleather jacket due to a number of issues with the Mustangs of that era, most notably a significant decline in performance that Ford attempted and failed to hide with aggressively 80s exteriors. In 1983, Ford produced more than 120,000 Mustangs, but only 556 GT turbo models. Simply put, the top performance version was no longer being purchased. Though it wasn't the Mustang fans had expected, the GT Turbo's turbocharged 2.3-liter four-cylinder engine produced 145 horsepower and 185 pound-feet of torque, making it a legitimate, if unimpressive, performer for its time. This car originally hit the market at $10,088, but now you can find them on the used market for around $14,498. They made 556 units. The Buick Regal was a good mid-sized car on its own, performing well compared to others in its class, and its Grand National trim level outperformed many of its rivals. It wasn't enough for Buick to be just better than average. They handed McLaren a Grand National, and he transformed it into a unique performance machine. The Buick GNX stood out not only for its power, but also for how it was achieved. In classic muscle car fashion, McLaren retuned and turbocharged the GN's standard V6, streamlined it, and improved handling to boost horsepower and torque. As a result, the midsize Buick produced 276 horsepower and 360 pound-feet of torque. Since Buick only produced 547 GNX, these vehicles are now in high demand. This car originally hit the market at $29,389, but now you can find them on the used market for around $107,000. The Omni, somewhat resembling an Americanized VW Rabbit, flew the flag for U.S. muscle at a time when muscle icons were fighting for survival. Carroll Shelby added muscle to the Dodge Omni in a classic 1980s style. With 175 horsepower, the result easily outperformed full-sized models competing for the same market. Just 500 Dodge Omni more were produced by Shelby, each capable of competing with a Ferrari 308 or Shelby's iconic 1965 GT 350. This car originally hit the market at $11,000, but now you can find them on the used market for around $18,931. Fans of great sleeper cars often imagine pulling up to a red light beside an extravagant, flashy car and then racing past it in a car that's all go and no show. The Dodge Caravan Turbo has long been the best vehicle for that scenario. Its origin story is amusing. Chrysler's 98 horsepower engines couldn't keep up with demand for their popular minivans in the late 1980s. To satisfy demand, Chrysler began equipping the Caravan and Voyager with a turbocharged Mitsubishi V6 engine. The majority of buyers weren't interested in performance, so the 150 horsepower minivans weren't well received. The turbo lag also made them difficult to handle. This car originally hit the market at $14,427, but now you can find them on the used market for around $9,075. In 1979, Ford ended the long life of its Ranchero utility vehicle. However, they explored reviving the car/truck segment by offering a version of the unimpressive Ford Fairmont Compact for $2,500. The Durango, not to be confused with the Dodge Durango SUV, was a classic sleeper for Ford fans, but it never sold as well as the base Fairmont. With an optional 4.2-liter V8 producing 115 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque, it matched or outperformed every Mustang of its model year, except those with the 5-liter V8. Only about 212 units were made. This car originally hit the market at $8,849, but now you can find them on the used market for around $6,500. From a business perspective, Zimmer was a unique company. Specializing in a form of resto-modding, Zimmer took high-performance car internals and created new cars with vintage styling. The Golden Spirit and Quicksilver were among the most unusual sleepers ever made, even though Zimmer only managed 2 models before it went out of business. The Quicksilver's Pontiac 2.8-liter V6 engine produced 138 horsepower and 170 pound-feet of torque. Some have called it one of the ugliest vehicles of the 1980s, but it offered sports car capabilities in a GM-style design. Hagerty reported that only 170 were ever produced. This car originally hit the market at $48,000, but now you can find them on the used market for around $22,000. Classic sleepers include the old Mercedes AMG sedans. AMG took pride in transforming sensible Mercedes vehicles into high-performance machines, while Mercedes built cars suited for both everyday commutes and Autobahn runs. With 355 horsepower, 388 pound-feet of torque, and a 0 to 60 time of 5 seconds, the AMG Hammer was essentially an unassuming W124 sedan with impressive performance. The full story of its engineering deserves an article of its own. While the exact number of AMG Hammer cars is unknown, the most widely accepted estimate is 54. If you can find one on the used market, expect to pay around $140,000. Originally, its price was $137,000. Which one would you like to own? Give your opinion in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more of the best new vehicle videos here at Finest Vehicles.